I'm drawing you into this episode with a cynical, shameless display of droning excitement from the skies above Alan. The reason you'll soon see. Yes, the Searchlight. The deal I'm willing to do is that you hang on through this finale to the greatest saga ever told, on the topic of approximately 8 kilograms of fiberglass. Then you can see me slice a piece of polycarbonate with an angle grinder. Quick catch up. The mount is already glassed on, faired and sanded back, and no longer merely coated with white primer. In fact, it looks somewhat at home. Next, I need to fit the electrics inside, which means this remote-controlled 12-volt LED searchlight, a 24-volt to 12-volt step-down block, and an inline fuse. It's not a complicated installation, save for running the wires through a gland and into the conduit that sends them sternward. This is a slab of painted steel. It's magnetic, and it shall keep the searchlight in place, for the light has magnets as feet, which I contend will make a good conversation starter at a dinner party. I affixed the metal inside the housing, followed by the searchlight, and it turned out that everything worked first time. The power flowed like a raging 2-amp torrent along the wires, and the light swiveled and pivoted on demand. The first of the finishing touches were thick polycarbonate side windows. The triangular ones will allow the light to beam out at an extreme left or right angle if needed, although I think perhaps it wasn't truly worth the effort, and the domed rear ones will allow the bulging rear corners of the light to swivel to their full extent without colliding with the fiberglass. They might help visibility in the event of repairs in the field too. Like a sandwich of finishing touches, the most important finishing touch is up next, the transparent front panel. I'm using polycarbonate, of course, but despite being warned it can be a pain to work with, I've had no such issues. The curved shape of the housing means some bending is called for, and I found that it only took 2 or 3 goings over with the heat gun, checking the fit on the housing each time, before I was happy the shape was good. I was also warned about 3D warping or bubbling the plastic, but it all just bent. Excellent. And as promised, I got a clean cut with the angle grinder once the final dimension was confirmed. I even found that the protective films on both sides of the polycarb sheet acted as a warning. A few seconds after the film began to melt and peel back with the heat, the polycarb reached the right temperature to apply a gentle bending force. Somehow I did manage to cause a small scratch though. I bonded on some UV-resistant rubber seal strip, and then took on the mighty job of fixing it tightly to the housing itself. Of course, this is the access hatch, so it needs to be removable. But it's also on Alan's bow, so needs to be seriously robust. This isn't the time nor the place for Velcro, ladies and gentlemen. The flat half at the bottom is quite easy, as the panel can be pushed into position in a straight line. I've epoxy embedded 4 stainless steel threads into the fiberglass. Weirdly, studs were really pricey at this size, so I cut the heads off a few bolts at a fraction of the cost. The tricky bit, of course, will be the 3 fixing holes along the top, and the most critical part of the weather seal. As an aside, I was also told that drilling polycarbonate near the sheet edges can go severely wrong with snags and cracks, but it didn't. I ended up with neat circular holes. Back to the complicated bit. The hypothetical studs at the top would be at the wrong angle unless you tried to install them horizontally to match the lower ones, but then the nuts wouldn't lock flush against the panel surface. My solution at the moment is to embed nuts into the other side of the fiberglass and drive bolts through the panel and housing from the outside, to pull the seals tight and complete the fit. Although I'm also eyeing up side latches instead, with metal braces across the top and bottom of the panel to avoid warping the plastic. Any ideas from you lot for a better, simple, robust method that doesn't negate the work to date? I've chosen nylon wingnuts for now, as they tighten nicely and won't be cold to the touch in winter, but I'll watch and wait to pounce with upgrades should these fail me. If any spray or condensation does collect inside, the steep angle will send any such interloping wetness down and out through a drain hole. I don't think seawater could be forced up and in through this drain, due to the angle and length, but I can add a U-bend if needed. You will all recall my sandwich of finishing touches. No fear, we'll have no open sandwiches on this channel. Here's the bread on top. Aggressive quantities of anti-slip granules set in Alan's polyurethane paint on top of the housing. With extra handles and a lower step to come, climbing from bow to deck of Alan will no longer equate to a death sentence. And on that cheery note I await evening testing with a rather fetching sunset over the creek. because it would be pure cruelty to inflict this epic mini project on you, yet not show you the searchlight searching for things, even if things is the side of a warehouse. Darkness finally enveloped Alan and all else around him, and it was time to see if we have glory or failure. Ridiculous confected jeopardy aside, I do actually want to see what sort of light pattern I get out the front of the clear panel, and how it's affected when panning to the extremes of the range. I also want to double check that in this particular position, the remote control signal is received right at Alan's stern. It's approaching the limits of even my camera's rather smart sensor, but through the glare I hope you agree that we have success. Intensity is excellent, with the caveat of light spillages around the main beam that are inevitable, unless I use an LEP light instead. See my recent episode on those. I also get an only partly disrupted beam when shone around the housing's solid front corners. They have to be there in order to retain enough strength to be stood on. With that, I'll nearly bow out for this episode, but not before asking something of all of you. I did a jacket and shiny boots discussion at the Oxford Union back at the start of the summer. Since the competition for views and eyeballs is somewhat fierce, with these spurious and barely known other guests known to speak there, surely this is the perfect time to mobilise our community and see what you all think of it. There's a card up here in the corner that will take you directly to the video, and I'll link in the description too. The first few minutes was my introduction, but then it's all questions and answers from the chair and the audience. We don't do bleating please on this channel, so I'll keep it authentic by saying it'll enhance your life even more profoundly than buying a copy of each of my books. Cheers, it's appreciated. Bye.